Hey, deserving listeners, Love is Blind. Let's watch and see what comes flying out of my face.
Good, yeah. I wanted to reach out to Lauren ever since last night. Like, ever since things ended. I want to say hi to her and I want to, like, go home with her and, like, hold her and everything, but I know it's probably too late for all that. I suck at, like, wanting what I can't have. When I had it and I can't have it, so.
Have you told your sister that you ended things with Lauren?
Yes, I've told my sister that we ended things.
We ended things. Again, shirking responsibility. Yeah, it's weird, right? Now, it could be that he's just saying all this because he's trying to come across as a nice guy, that he longs for her and misses her. It could also be some manipulation of, it's not my fault. But there's a possibility that a part of him, a big part of him, desperately wants to be with Lauren. And the things that he says are true, that he is in love, that he does long to cuddle with Lauren and to be with her and go home with her. But he can't. And he has no rational way of explaining why that is. He has a way of explaining it, but it makes no sense from the outside. You know, how could someone say this and break up with someone the night before for such stupid reasons, right?
How did she react?
She sent me, like, the teary-eyed emoji being like, I'm really sorry, I'm here for you if you need me. I don't know.
Well, that certainly doesn't sound like a controlling person. So who knows? I mean, it's a data point. You know, I've been hypothesizing that he could be pushing or requiring or transferring his mom or his hope of his mom. You know, it's another angle to this of some desire to return to the womb in a way because of some unmet needs growing up, and then was really set in stone with the death of his mom. And so he is forcing his sister, at least in his mind, to be not only mom, but like complete all-encompassing mom.
I feel like maybe I took those things a little too personal. I do wish that I could, like, go back and do things differently and hear things differently, process them differently. Lauren deserves that. I love her, and I should be sticking up for her.
I think what he's referring to is the jealousy. I think that, because I'm trying to processing what. I think that's what he's saying. That's interesting.
I would love to go talk to her because I do feel like I could still be that guy for her.
Okay, I don't know, but I think that was the producer asking, do you want to go talk to her? And then he says, I do want to go talk to her. And either the producer was just making conversation, you know, just curious, or the producer is thinking, do you want to go talk to her? Because that will make a great scene. And maybe the producers even know, look, unless something happens between the two of you, we're not going to have anything to show of this. We need something to happen. And the two of you are our only hope.
Can I hug you like this?
Yeah.
I know it's weird.
Just watching the Dave hugging Lauren. I said, maybe sparks will fly.
My sparks are flying for you. Sorry I avoided you. I didn't know you were going to be here. I was hoping you were going to be here. And one thing I'm really bad at is, like, admitting that I'm wrong. It just sucks. Like, it's not you. That's the thing about all this. Like, it's not you.
Okay, so Dave went up to Lauren and asked to talk with her, and they hugged, and he is intoxicated pretty clearly. He's slurring his words. So I don't know how that might be affecting things, but he is saying that he's wrong, or he has a hard time. He didn't say he's wrong, but he has a hard time admitting he's wrong. Okay. Yeah, I don't know what he's saying specifically.
Yeah.
I'm so sick of, like, having to try to, like, defend you versus my friends versus my family. I'm like, I don't care about that.
Okay, I think what's happening, if I'm reading it right, which I can't know, is that his intoxication or his intention, regardless, is to try to be kind and to make up, try to apologize. He loves her, if we believe that, which I do in a sense. I think he has a version of affection for her. I don't know if he has the capacity yet, which happens, to love someone in the way that typically what we're communicating when we're saying that to a spouse, right? But his version of that, and it's not a lesser version, it's just a version that fits within the conceptualization that I've been hypothesizing. But I think another part of this is him thinking out loud. I think after Molly put the screws to him, he has been thinking, and with the alcohol, and he's uninhibited. And I think in this conversation, because Lauren, for good reason, is just, in terms of the edit, is just like looking at him. I imagine she's thinking, don't get hooked, because you've been hooked before. And if you open your heart or you start getting involved, he's just going to hurt you. So unless I hear something very different and very convincing, I'll listen to this, but I'm not going to say much.
It was my fault. Like, it was my ego got in the way of really seeing what we had.
Ego. Okay, so I think that points. So if I were to take a guess, I would say that there are a number of main factors that resulted in him doing all that he has done. One of which is this immature jealousy, ego thing that he's referring to. And maybe even a cultural pocket that he's in that is highly traditional around such matters, maybe particularly around women. I don't know. It wouldn't be the first time that had happened. Because that seems to be clear, right? That focus, and he brings that up. And then that could be absolutely happening and independent of any sort of dependency. And also another major factor is the overfunctioning, underfunctioning dynamic enmeshment. Possibly either it's really happening or he's creating it, imagining it.
I guess what I'm saying is I'm really sorry. I had a really long day today, and I got back to our place. It killed me seeing that your stuff was out.
Okay, so I think this is a continuation of 24 hours ago when they were talking and he basically broke up. Looking back, I wonder if he thought that he didn't break up with her, that he just conceded to breaking up. Because he didn't say anything like, I'm sorry, I'm breaking up. It was a very, I'm trying to remember what he said, but it was an indirect statement, right? Like, I think this is the best decision or something like that. And he is continuing, and I'll commend him for it. This could be helpful. This could be repaired. He says he's sorry. I don't think he knows himself or relationships well enough to really apologize in a way that would make sense. The apology that, if I'm conceptualizing, but even if I'm not, that would make more sense to me would be, hey, I'm really sorry. I didn't want to hurt you, and I legit was in love with you, and when we got engaged, everything was real, and I wasn't faking it. I was feeling it once we were out of the pods, and this has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with me and my life, and I don't know, my maturity or my trauma or my family or my friends or my jealousy. And that just ruined it for me, and that has nothing to do with you, and I'm so sorry. I feel so bad. I still care about you, and you're the last person on the planet I want to hurt. Something like that. But I don't think he understands himself well enough to be able to say that.
Didn't feel good. It's not like what I wanted out of this.
I know. I wanted text you and be like, you okay? I care so much about you. And it felt so bad. I was just like, that's all I wanted.
You didn't text me.
I know.
You didn't
You didn't text me either.
It's because I was pissed.
So who knows if I'm just confirmation biasing right now, but that shirking of guilt, of him initially saying, I wanted to text you, and then she says, but you didn't text me. And so that makes him feel guilty, makes him have to reckon with maybe the supreme guilt that he tries to avoid, which is that he is breaking up and he's hurting someone. And so he refutes, has a quick, well, you didn't text me either, which is ridiculous. Why would she text you? Another thing that I think could be on display is he does not think of himself as driving the bus. And another thing just occurred to me, I've talked before about how he might have chosen Lauren because she was more pointed or directive, if you will. It wasn't extreme, but compared to Molly, she was much more forward with, hey, I want you to pick me, that kind of energy, right? And she was saying things, I want to be with you and I see myself with you, whereas Molly was not sure or wasn't as upfront about that. Anyway, but the converse, or as a part of that, it's possible that Lauren, and he might even see her continuing as someone that potentially could be his overfunctioner, which I've already mentioned, but she might actually have, because, she's a teacher, right? And I don't, it's impossible to tell someone's personality from their job. Well, she's in educational sales, but my impression, the way that they were describing her was that she was at least close to being a primary school teacher from my memory. Anyway, it's possible that her personality is such that she is really good at taking care of people. One of the things you could imagine is that she's very forgiving, right? Which is a good quality to have, I suppose, if it's directed in the right way. And there are different types of codependent. There's different types of overfunctioners. There are controlling types, which are fairly obvious, but there's also the accommodating type. And in the deep dive on codependency, there's also a chameleon type, but that's more rare in my anecdotal experience anyway. But the accommodating type is more subtle. It's more stealth. It doesn't look controlling. It doesn't look overfunctioning. It looks nurturing. It looks caring. It looks motherly. It looks nurturing. It looks like a giving soul. But it is still codependent. It's not controlling. It's not abusive, but it is just can be, if not more, rigid as a controlling abusive person. And she doesn't exhibit it. If anything, her not sliding into that role with him might have been a reason why this didn't work in some ways. So let's just try this on for size. Let's say that Lauren was more like that and or was more of the controlling, dominant type of codependent overfunctioner. And I don't even know if she's an overfunctioner. She seems to actually be avoiding the push or the pull to become an overfunctioner to him, But, so let me just describe to you what an overfunctioner would look like in her shoes. They would, when he was wishy-washy and he's like, what am I supposed to do? What a codependent person potentially would do is they would say, give me the phone number. And when he's like, no, she would demand it or find it and go around him. She would talk to the other adult. He's a kid, he's a child, he's a competent. So the two adults have to talk. And she would do that, either to get them on her side or to fight against them, right? And you could see someone doing that, given the way that he was talking, right? It would be a sensible, at least motivation of just like, they say I'm not good enough for you. That's bullshit. I'm in love with you. You're in love with me. They have to calm the fuck down. If you're not going to talk to him, I'm going to talk to him because that's how much this means to me, And then what's it being formed is, again, underfunctioner, overfunctioner. She is doing his job. In fact, that really fits. Underfunctioners will unconsciously, especially as they are attaching, just lay out their incompetence and their underfunctioning And if an overfunctioner slots into that Lego piece, that puzzle piece, then things will progress. But if they don't, then it won't progress. It's unconscious. One way of looking at everything that he was doing was just laying out his incompetence and his powerlessness and his lack of action and his, wet noodleness. What am I supposed to do? And if Lauren was more traumatized in this way and had a similar schema that resulted in parentification and overfunctioning, you could imagine someone in Lauren's position just really taking control, telling him what to do. And as he might begin to talk about breaking up, she was really healthy and was just like, well, she would listen and would wait for him to commit one way or the other. She handled it really well. Whereas if she was more pointed and would fight and say, I don't understand, there's a possibility that he might actually perk up around that and say like, oh, well, maybe this is going to work and maybe my sister does need to go away, that kind of thing. It's interesting to think about, right? I guess it's an obvious angle to this that I hadn't, at least I don't remember saying.
Like, genuinely, like, I have been giving, like, 150% the last week to, like, try to figure things out with you.
Yeah.
And, like, you've not given me that. If I would have texted you, like, why am I continuing to be the one to, like...
I know.
Like, that's not... Like, you were giving me nothing. Like, you were giving me no...
And that accusation thrown back at her of, well, you didn't text me, would be an invitation potentially for an overfunctioner, either the accommodating type, which would say, well, he's got issues around that. He's got his sister and he hasn't done this sort of thing before, so I need to take care of him. Or in the controlling type of, I'm just going to... He's incompetent. He's like a little boy, and he's not going to text me. So I'm going to text him. I'm going to tell him what to do. Like there's different versions of those mindsets, but that's where it gets developed. That's where it starts. Lauren doesn't have that inclination, and so maybe that's why it didn't work.
In any capacity, and so like, why would I be the one to like?
I know.
Reach out. Like
you don't need to be. That's what I'm trying to tell you. You don't need to be. I do. In my head, everything was a yes. I was like, Lauren's everything I've always dreamt of.
So I imagine the online narrative, I never know, but I'm imagining that at least a percentage of the audience would think that he's just saying this, that he never liked her, or as soon as he saw her in the hallway, he didn't like her. And that's possible. But another possibility is that he was deeply in love with her in the way that he would say, in the way that he's saying now. But all the other things are getting in the way, right? All the things unrelated to Lauren. It's weird, isn't it? I mean, I guess there's another version of this where he is doing what people will do, maybe for good reason, maybe for ethical, moral reasons in a breakup. They will, highlight and emphasize the positive sides. Now, the downside of if his mindset is of breaking up and doing so in a revisiting it in a way of apologizing, this could lead someone on. But if he's actually still confused, which wouldn't be strange, then maybe this is a result of that.
I can't picture anyone better. Making sure you're okay was my number one priority. And I think that's what love.
And that had just occurred to me. Wait, is someone going to ask him about the woman that was all over him the other night? Because I think that would have been 2 nights ago. Right? Isn't that how it worked out? Or at least it was recent.
We both know it's real. And I feel like that's always been my thing with you. It's just I know it's real. I know you know it's real too. And that freaks me out. You don't need to say anything to that.
Okay. So Lauren is confused or frustrated or maybe feels the temptation to fight and say, well, then what's the deal, right? But a part of her knows don't do that, which is good. And it could seem very strange, but if he already did not consider the breakup to be his fault or his doing because of incompetent schema or guilt denial, then continuing to be broken up or getting back together also is not in his court. And he would just be speaking freely from his heart. Other people without the schema that I am hypothesizing would then say, well, my hands are on the wheels, on the steering wheel, and I the best life is to take a right, then I'm the only one that can do it. There's a good possibility that he's sitting right in front of the steering wheel, he's in the driver's seat, and he's just like, if only I could have a good life, if only I could turn right, if only that would happen. Oh, well.
I'm sorry that you're like going through all of the feels of this. I want to believe it so badly, and like a lot of me does, but it's just like hard to fully.
Deep inside my mind, you can see the shrine, got you on my wall.
I find the musical cues to be particularly annoying this season. I don't know if I'm just noticing it, but one, it's too loud. It's also really distracting, and I'm not a fan. This is an important scene. I get it. They're trying to transition to the next scene, and they'll have the song be that through line, right? But wait until the dialogue is over because it's almost like they're prioritizing the song over the conversation. And it's almost like they're removing sentences. They're playing these little snippets. Like, you know, I imagine some editor is like proud of the way that the song integrates with the sentences, but it should be, the song should be sensed. It shouldn't be in your face. I'm going to rewind it. Let me know what you think.
But it's just like hard to fully.
Deep inside my mind, you can see the shrine, got you on my wall. Believe it.
I mean, it's not a bad song. But the whole conversation, there were no musical interferences. And then at the end, it's just like, you know, just let it wrap up. And then, you know, as soon as they're, then, you know, I'm a big fan. On my podcast, I actually like a hard cut. If you ever listen to the audio podcast, at the end, I say, you know, take care of yourself because you deserve it. And then boom, I play a song. And by the way, all the songs that I play are songs that I've written and recorded. They're just snippets of songs, like where there's no lyrics, there's no melody. There's just like an instrumental bit of the song. Or I recorded an instrumental song. Anyway, I'm not saying that to brag. I'm saying that as just a point of interest, because when I listen to podcasts and you hear music, sometimes it's stock footage or it's AI or something. And I don't know. I just felt like, but I like a good boom.
I wanna taste the crush, I wanna get you going. I wanna lay you down, I wanna string you up, I wanna make you.
Especially a song with, if it was just an instrumental, it would be in half the volume. I think it would be fine. But songs with lyrics, it's, you hear the words. One, two, why would you pick a song with these lyrics? I want to tie you up. I want to make you mine. What are you, how does that remotely fit what's happening right now? So, and you know, I don't blame the artist. Whoever wrote and recorded this song just was writing a song. It's not their fault. Some editor decided to impose someone's music on someone. You know, it's like, we're not in a dance club. They're not in a dance club. They're in a ski lodge. Anyway. All right. Well, so Dave did that. And I'll give him a thumbs up for being kind in his distorted, weird way. And might there be a revisiting, you know, might they get back together for a couple days and then break up? That happens. And sometimes it's even helpful to the Laurens of the world to go through stuff like that. Not all the time, of course, but sometimes it can be a way of like, oh, yeah. This isn't good. I don't need to pine for this person anymore. Or something, you know. or just another way of saying goodbye. You know, people will do that. They will continue to get together, maybe physically, and those kinds of aftermaths, if you will, can be a way of transitioning, a way of processing grief, depending, of course. It can also be a way for both individuals to avoid moving forward, to retain, you know, to have the cake and eat it too, that kind of stuff. It depends. But yeah, so, you know, of these sort of conversations, he wasn't blaming her. He earlier with Molly was blaming her, or not blaming, but saying, well, you know, she was dating some. And with that conversation with Molly, maybe he had even more reason, or for the first time, he's like, maybe I have a problem with that. Maybe that's not Lauren's fault. I should apologize. And then he does. So maybe that's helpful. Yeah. I think I said this a long time ago that there's really no way forward, given what we have seen about Dave, that would give me reason to root for the two of them. Not that I wouldn't root for them if things turned out a little differently, but I think we can all agree that Dave has a lot of work to do. This was perhaps a huge leap forward for him. It kind of looks that way. And if he continues down that road, then a lot of really important learning and grief, you know, this could half be just related to the grief of losing his mom. Grief can be interwoven with difficulty and distortion and pain. What do you do when you are grieving the death of your mom and you had a complicated relationship with her to begin with, and now she's gone? You can never correct it, you know? Like, I'll have clients that will talk with me in therapy about their upsetness and trauma around one of their parents. And my client will say, yeah, I've decided I can't have contact with this person because it just hurts too much and I just don't want to give them satisfaction. And then that parent dies, and then my client will say that they are regretting not having reached out to try to work things out. And more often than not, after exploring it, the individual, the client, will conclude it wouldn't have helped to reach out. You know, the reason why I cut myself off from my parent was for very good reasons. I probably waited way too long to cut off my parent to begin with. So there wasn't a path forward, but in my heart, I always hoped, you know, given that they were still alive, that maybe one day they would apologize. And now that they're dead, that can never happen. And that can be very painful. Even though consciously they had given up on that decades ago. So maybe there's something like that with him. You know, there's a lot of work that looks like would be fruitful for him to do, right? Okay, well, that seems like a good place to take a break for now. And everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.